All right. You know what it is. You know who it is. We are back with another episode of the BG Perform podcast with my co-host, Coach Jerry Hayes. Coach Jerry
What's up?
Hayes, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's been a very, very busy week. Probably the busiest that it's been since I moved to California. A lot of changes at work. Very drastic and sudden changes at work. We'll say that. So, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, just keeping me on my toes. Training has been a little off this week because of it, but we're gonna still push through and get some sessions in this week and do the best that we can to stay on as close to a normal schedule as possible. But things are good. How about you?
Beautiful. Been a little bit sick, feeling a little bit better. Been resting
Sounding
this
a lot
week,
better.
been taking it back a notch in training, running a little bit less intense. I needed it anyways. I was feeling exhausted at the end of last week. I'm not sure if it was because of the training or if it was just because of me getting sick, but I was feeling it at the end of last week. But we're here, we're making shit happen. About to kick it off with another episode. So we're gonna be
Mm-hmm.
talking about the power of observation, and I think one of the biggest details of coaching that isn't talked about enough is observing. Because I think a lot of the things that we talk about, and especially we've talked about in the last few episodes here, is communicating, right? And that's you know what we say, how we translate our thoughts, how we actually talk to a client, cue a client, build a relationship with a client. And a lot of that's very verbal or very forward, right? But I think one of the biggest skills of a coach that we can discuss or dive into a little bit deeper is the power of observation and how you can actually utilize observation, make it more effective, and then have it translate into better communication and better results with a client, right? So I think when we discuss this, I want to start with like a story because I recently had a client who was coming in and I hadn't seen her in a while and she wanted to just come in and get some sessions in. And while we were getting the sessions done, she initially came to me with like, hey, I want to try to fix this. Like I'm having an issue on a squat and this is bothering me. I think it was her knee initially. And or no, it was a hack squat she was doing, and she was feeling a lot of pain in her lower back. And she was like, my lower back is really bothering me. Like it's always been tight. Whatever the case may be. I was like, all right, cool. Like let's break it down. Let's kind of see what we're actually like getting into. And we just went out. We warmed up. Did like a nice solid warm up. Took her through some stuff. Saw some things in the warm up, but again, I'm gonna get to this point of the story in a second. Didn't say much, just kind of let her move. Then we went out to the hack squat. I did zero weight, just the machine. Saw a couple things right away. Then I added some weight, saw a couple more things. Then I added a little bit more weight to like a real challenging weight, and I really saw like what the issue was, right? And obviously, she came to me with, the lower back being the issue. This was what was bothering her. She thought whatever she was doing in the squat, which I can't remember what she thought she was doing wrong, but um, she was she thought she wasn't getting, or I think she thought she wasn't getting deep enough into the squat, and I'll kind of explain in a second. So I was like, okay, well, let me see it, right? So we're about 2 sets into the squat, 3 sets into the squat actually, before I actually said a single cue. And I was like, okay, I want you to drive your knees a little bit more forward at the beginning of this squat on the machine. So instead of shooting your hips all the way back first, I want you to just drive your knees forward. She drove her knees forward. She was like, oh, wow, that felt really good. And I was like, cool. So now let's try it again. And she was still a little bit hips back. I said, now I want you, this is going to be a little bit of something you're going to have to work on in these next couple sets because it's going to be weird to you. But I want you to initiate the squat with your knees and start shooting them forward a little bit more at the bottom. And your hips are just going to kind of find their way when you get towards the bottom. She's like, okay, cool. So she does it again, feels even better. By the third set of her doing that, it looked great. And she was like, yeah, my back isn't bothering me at all. Right. So just to kind of take a little bit of a step back, like the observation point there is like, obviously, someone can come to us with back pain and we can give them all the fixes that we want. We can tell them it's this, it's that, whatever. But usually, if we're being honest, like a lot of times pain or uh, irritation is a symptom, right? It's not the cause. And I think a lot of people get symptomatic with their treatment where it's like, my lower back hurts. Let me treat the lower back, right? Um, So I think where I'm trying to go with this is it was probably 20-ish minutes, 25-ish minutes before I actually gave her like a real cue in regards to like how she could improve the squat. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't just standing there like Michael Myers, like waiting for her to do something. Like I was still talking to her, I was having conversation, but I was trying not to throw too much at her because I really wanted to see where the issue was coming from. And sometimes, had I jumped in too soon, had I started cueing other things that came to my head, I might have put her in a worse position. I might have not fixed the problem at all. And sometimes you really just need to sit back and watch. And obviously you need to know when to do that and when not to do that. With some people, you just don't know them well enough physically, so you kind of have to take a step back and just watch. Some people, some people you can just tell by their body type, hey, it might be this, or you might be able to tell by an individual that it might be a little tweak that has nothing to do with the actual movement, right? Like for example, tall people are going to struggle with like a straight bar deadlift. Like if you get them in a trap bar, it's going to be much more comfortable. And it might be a simple fix like that after years and years and years of experience training taller people, you just know, right? But then there's going to be some that they come to you really have to like sit back and watch, because she came to me with lower back pain, right? But really what it really was just a symptom of her not utilizing basically the lever of the machine and understanding the right way to kind of go through a squat, right? So that's my story from the floor this week. And I think it's really important that that story be like the catalyst for the rest of this conversation, because observation is just so important to actually getting where you need to get with a client.
Mm. Similarly, I had a client who was doing to actually transition from trap bar deadlift. You mentioned that. She was having this weird wiggle in the back of her hamstring, kind of like distal hamstring toward the back of your knee, where it felt like her tendon was like doing one of these in her leg. And she was like, I don't know what it is. Every time we do trap bar, it's like, as soon as we get to a certain weight, I start to feel it. And I was like, that's so weird. You're going to hear a train go by in a minute. It's going to be super loud. But I was like, that's super weird. Let's see if we can fix it. So I was trying different things. Like I did a classic, like real simple, almost overused fix. I was like, let's just try to put a band around your knee. I want to see if it like does the same thing. And it didn't. So I was like, maybe the glutes, this freaking train, maybe the glutes aren't like doing their job in this movement. Maybe we do this for a little bit. We pair it with a glute movement, see if we can strengthen it. Come next program comes around and we're doing rear foot elevated split squats. She says, I actually have the hamstring wiggle in the rear foot elevated split squat. And I said, that's super weird. So, and then this was all being done remotely. So I was having her send me videos and we were looking at form from the front, from the side, trying to like literally analyze it every single way I could as a remote coach. And the band fixed it for a little bit, but then when she felt it in rear foot elevated split squat, you could easily do like an RNT version of that where you strap a band around it, but I didn't want to make it overcomplicated. So I said, first, why don't you send me the video from the front, send it from the side, we'll see. From the front, looked perfect. Awesome. From the side, I noticed that she was doing almost like a little, like a scoop with her upper body as she was coming up. So she'd come down and then almost scoop her way up. And I was like, okay, interesting. I'm wondering if you're making, obviously the deadlift is pretty hamstring dominant, but in the trap bar, you get a little more knee dominant movement than you would in a straight bar. And she never felt it when she was doing like RDLs or anything. And I found out that she was basically pulling through a split squat. So she was kind of pulling her foot toward her to come up rather than pushing through the ground. And the way I fixed it, she's a hockey player. I was like, think of it like you're skating. Push yourself up. Don't pull. And just from seeing, like, sometimes it's the same movement that you have to analyze, but sometimes you go to a different one and it answers questions for you. Fix the wiggle. The wiggle's gone. Sometimes when she does trap bar, it'll still come back, and we're trying to work on that one a little bit, but we're working on the wiggle, and it took doing a completely different movement to figure out what was going wrong and why that wiggle was happening.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think that's, sometimes, like I said, sometimes it really takes just watching, because I think a lot of the times too, when people do have problems or they have issues or things that they're struggling with, sometimes you just need to kind of smartly put them under load and just watch them mess up, right? Because this is a big thing or a big problem I have with some assessments and why I've kind of like changed my tone a little bit on assessments overall, because for the most part, unless you're having some type of performance output that you need specifically, a lot of times assessments aren't going to give you exactly what you're looking for, right? Like, and this is why I think if you're going to do assessments, they need to be repeatable. They need to be the same thing. It needs to be done over the course of time to say like, hey, am I actually getting something from this? Am I seeing something from this? And again, you're observing, right? Like when I do assessments, for the most part, I don't say anything in the assessment. Like I rarely, if ever, cue. I rarely, if ever, correct. I just kind of want to see what they do, how they handle themselves, how they move their body through space. And it's important because that's when you're going to see most of the things, if they're right or wrong, right? Like that's where you're going to see where most things go wrong, right? And then in the actual movements, when things are actually like occurring inside of an exercise or a workout or a session, you have to watch even more, right? As you learn the person, the communication is going to become more efficient. But very early on, it's so important to just watch and just listen and see. And it's not only you know the movement, right? But it's the body language. It's what do they look like in their rest? What do they look like in the reps? What are they looking like after the first, second, and third set? What are they looking like at the beginning of the workout to the end of the workout? Like these are all very powerful observations, because we'll dive into each of these quickly. But like, imagine someone walks in, they're ecstatic, right? And they're like, yeah, I just had the best day ever, blah, blah, blah. There might be some more room normally than what you're doing, right? And it's really important to observe and see like, all right, what is it that I'm seeing when they walk in the door? Because those are really important cues as a coach, that if you're just, talking your way, I guess talking your way out of paying attention, or talking your way into just like over talking, right? And I don't want to get like nitpicky here where it's like, don't talk too much, don't talk too little, but it's like, you just want to make sure you're paying attention to the person that's in front of you, right? And I think the body language is a huge one, because there might be sets where, you're completing reps and they're coming out and they're like just boom, head down, hands down, slumped over posture. And you're just like, yo, you just crushed that. Like, what's up? And they're like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. And you're just like, all right, well, like, asking better questions, diving into it. Or, like I said, you might see them being like super, super excited, super ecstatic, going through the whole thing, and they're enjoying the process, right? But I think overall, observing can really give us an opportunity to not only, actually see what's going on, right? Like see what's truly going on right in front of us, but also create positive impact on the communication. Because I think a lot of the times coaches just talk to talk, and we've had this conversation with being a cheerleader versus actually being a coach. And being a coach requires you to actually step back and like take some time just watching, right? And just sitting there watching things happen, watching people make mistakes, watching people do things well, and be like, hey, you did this really well on these first two sets. What happened here on the third? Or you were doing that really bad on the first two sets. Now you're fixing it. Like, what are you feeling? Right? Because I think as we start as coaches, what we want to do is we obviously want to guide people, right? We want people to be able to, not only make the right decisions, but also get better and more confident at making those decisions. And a lot of times with observation, we can kind of guide them down that path without having to like tell them or answer the question for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've had people come in where some people, you'll notice like based on the client, people are just different. But I've had clients who are very expressive like that. They come in, they either tell me right off the bat, like, oh, we're going to kill it today. Or they're like, dude, I slept like shit. Like, this is going to be a really rough session. I'm like, all right, we'll do what we can. But I've had people come in like Michael Myers, like clients who are just like, okay, I'm ready. And that's their excited day or their worst day ever. And you can't tell. Yeah. And that's why, like, you can have these conversations like, how'd you sleep last night? And they might go like, good. And it was terrible. Yeah. But like the moments when you're watching them move, you watch how hard they're breathing after like a set that's supposed to be 75% and they're breathing like it was 90. That's a big key. Okay, maybe they're not feeling so optimal. But some people like aren't very verbal, and some people honestly aren't even very good at showing how tired they are when they are tired. So you have to get really good at understanding how your specific client shows these things, because everybody's different. If
Yeah, and I think like
have a rough day and I'm not squatting well, I'll look at you and I'll be like, bro, shoot me in the face. And then you'll
yeah.
be like, all right, like it's a rough day. So,
Like I said, I think it's important. That's why there's kind of like a checklist you go through, right? Like when
hmm
someone walks in, observe, right? You don't
yeah.
have to call them out on it and be like, "Wow, you look exhausted." It's like, no, like no,
Are you
like
good? Are
yeah,
you okay?
watch, right? And if they're super happy, go with it, right? But just watch, just see how they come in, see how they're reacting to the environment, to the situation, whatever it might be, and then you can learn a lot just by watching these things. And then as you go forward, like you said, there might be some people who are super super nonverbal or super low energy or super what do we want to call it, like they just don't give you much,
They're
right?
stoic.
Yeah,
Not a
stoic,
lot of
stoic.
emotion, not a lot of energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just stoic and they won't give you much, right? And those are the types of people that are like, all right, physically I cannot see this right now.
hmm
But when they get into the workout, you want to know those things to look for on those people. And if you're training people enough, you're going to start to see those little things where it's like, they've never really sighed after a lift. So like, what was that about? Right.
hmm
Or I've never seen them like fail a rep, or I've never seen them take that long to get into the next set. So it's like, what's going on there? And you can kind of tell with these little things as you get more experienced in the observation that what they need, what question you need to ask, and then you can get to the problem quicker. And I think that's
hmm
the biggest thing is I don't want people to get confused with like, hey, talk less. But what I want people to get or take away from this episode is that observing actually gives us the opportunity to better realize what we need to communicate and how we need to communicate it so we can get from point A to point Z quicker, or point A to
hmm
point B, whatever you want to call it.
No, I'm going to Z. We're going all the way.
Going right to Z like Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
A to Z.
A to Z. With a smile the entire way.
But yeah, and I think coaching, if you can learn to do this properly and you can learn to actually take a step back, observe, and know when to step in and how to step in, like it's just going to level up the coaching, it's going to level up the experience, and it's going to give you opportunity to really like become efficient inside of your coaching, right? And I think a lot of people and coaches mess up, whether it be programming, whether it be communication, whether it be progression or regression, because they're just not observing. And that's
hmm
why it's so hard as a strength coach in a setting of, hey, I want to go to like a group session, right? Versus a PT session. A PT session is going to be a lot easier to observe because it's just one thing in front of you, right? In my opinion, it can be hard too if you're just looking at one thing, because you tend to kind of like veer off after a while. You're like, all right, I've been staring at the same squat for like 5 minutes now. Like, and your head just goes somewhere else because you're human, right? And I think in a group class, it's like, okay, I'm going to watch this guy for a squat. Cool. Now I'm going to watch this person for a squat. Cool. I'm going to watch this person for a squat. And you kind of like, you're scanning the room, seeing a bunch of different bodies, a bunch of different things. Your mind's kind of always going through. And, but they both have their pros and cons, right? The pro is on a personal session, you're going to see things a lot clearer and more efficiently because you're staring at one person consistently, right? In the
hmm
group session, it's going to be a little bit less, time spent on one person, but you're going to see a lot more variety. And that's where like, a long session, you might go through the whole session and be like, all right, I saw like 5 or 6 different things in the group class because there's, 6 to 10 different people. And I picked one really good thing on my personal training session to focus on inside the squat, and it made a world of difference, right? So once you get better at it, I do like, for me, I started in the group setting, right? And with
hmm
the group setting of cueing and coaching, it always was easier for me to be around more people in the beginning because there was more opportunity to learn. I was taking in more information. I might have cued somebody 2 seconds before and seen it directly after him and like, well, I just saw this, try this, right? In the personal training setting, there's a lot more detail you can get involved with, but you're only seeing one version or one view of what you're seeing, right? And some people, they just move differently. So it might not be the same outcome. It might not look the same, but they're still accomplishing the same thing. Like me squatting, 225 might look different than Jerry squatting 225, but we could both do it. One might look like, hey, it's a little bit easier. It's a little bit, shorter range of motion. One might look like, hey, it's a little bit harder because he's a little bit longer. But we're still getting it both done, but you're not going to cue us the same on a
Mhm.
squat for the most part because our bodies are a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, straight up, like thinking the difference between us. One, Brandon's got a better squat than me by far.
I don't know. I
But
haven't
like,
barbell back squat in like a year and a half.
yeah,
I
it's been going on some time for me too. It's just I got old man hips now.
just haven't
But
wanted to do it.
yeah,
Lazy,
it's
I
one of those
guess.
things like I can do it, but I have to be smart about it. But like your squat stance, even like your stance is different than mine. Yours is much narrower than mine. Mine, I got those birthing hips, so
Yeah.
mine's super wide. But also, I'm more hingy in my squat than you are, just because your mobility in your legs is different than mine. So
You're also
it's
slender,
cool.
man.
I am slender, man.
A lot
I am
skinnier
slender, man.
and longer than me.
I'm not too much longer. I'm just thinner, very
Well,
thin.
you're definitely your limbs are definitely got to be longer than mine. I would imagine. I
Probably.
would,
I got some ape arms. I'm like a
yeah.
chimp.
My
But
legs are a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say the group setting though. I think that's because obviously I started in group setting too in strength and conditioning, and I loved that, and I love group settings because of that same reason. You just learn so much about different body types and how they move, and I think the best part about it with observation in mind is when you're working with one person, like you said, like it's just one person, one way of doing things, but with observation, you can notice that like with this one person, if you notice this one thing went wrong, you can almost guess the other things that's going to go wrong or things that they might struggle with, which is cool because you learn this process of elimination type thing with
Hmm.
their movement and their capabilities. And then with the group setting, obviously, you just like you said, you have more of an opportunity to learn. You see a lot of different people, a lot of different bodies, a lot of different abilities. But I think it's hard for me to say which one. I think a lot of individual sessions has been nice, but I think group setting was best for me when it comes to observation and growing.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll be like straight up honest. Obviously, like that's the point of doing this. Like I've had
Yeah.
a lot of experience in group,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also had this crazy experience of training just one person for 2 years, like in person.
Yeah.
And in that time, I found myself struggling at points.
Mm.
And not because I was bad at my job, but like I said, you're staring at one person for, you're talking about 8 hours a week. You're not really seeing much variety in regards to clients. You're not getting as much output, because like I went from doing probably, you know, say 20 to 30 sessions a week in Florida to one a day with Ian for like an hour and a half. And not that it's bad.
Mm.
It's just like as a coach, you want to stay moving. Like momentum helps you. Momentum gets you moving. Momentum keeps you moving in the right direction. And with that being said, there's pros to it because it's like, hey, I got to work with just one person and really kind of hone in a skill or this individual and make him perform at his best, right? But
Mm-hmm.
in the group setting, again, you get all these different bodies. Like Jerry just said, I got to see all these different pieces. It keeps you alert. It keeps you focused. It keeps you, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It keeps you like on your toes, essentially. Like it just that's it. And it's like you can't just fall off. You can't because it's like, all right, I cued this guy in the squat like 4 times. Like he knows what to do. There's always something to get better at and learn, and obviously there's always something to get better at and learn with Ian. Like when I was working with him, but it's more about that aspect of like, hey, when you're just working with someone for 2 years, it's gonna get a little bit stale. Like it's gonna get a
Mm-hmm.
little bit like, and that was why I was really adamant on like trying to find other people to train, whether it be in England or Brazil, and you know, it wasn't necessarily something I like wanted to do because like I wasn't either getting paid what I normally wanted to, or I was just kind of doing like sessions here and there to help some people. But I was adamant on doing it when I could because I knew it would help me and kind of give me a different look, which then in return would help me with Ian. And I try to do that
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible. So I think that what I learned was that being better at observing really kind of just helps you overall. It puts you in a position where you're going to learn more, you're going to intake information a little bit more, and then biggest thing is you're going to digest it and then spit it back out more efficiently the more you do it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that conversation with yourself gets easier, then that conversation with the client gets easier, and then you guys get results quicker, which then impacts your or improves your coaching results and gets you what you want and essentially puts you in a position to charge more as a coach and build your business.
Yeah. I agree.
So yeah,
That's a good point.
so I think nothing else to add on top of that.
Not on top of that, no.
Cool. What's your hot take?
My hot take today is coaches who talk too much can sometimes take away from the sessions. And I think that we've talked about when you're talking too much, you're kind of a cheerleader.
See that? Yeah.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk at all, like you said in the beginning,
Yeah.
but I think that if you're talking too much, I've seen trainers do this where they basically talk the entire session, and it's almost like a therapy session for the trainer, which, like, if you're on that level with your client and you have deep conversations, great, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're talking so much that they have to, like, their rest is being extended, or they're feeling like they have questions about what you're doing in session, but they don't know where to jump in. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen people do it with conversation where they talk and talk and talk and talk, and sometimes you try to jump in and you just can't.
Yeah.
Imagine being the client in this sense, and you're trying to not only do the workout, and then when coaches are talking and telling stories as clients are lifting in the middle of a set, I'm like, dude, let them focus up. Because, like,
Yeah.
they could probably push a little bit harder if they didn't have that distraction.
Yeah.
So, like, one thing that I'll do is if, like, you can have normal conversation in a session, but if you're having a conversation, let's say Brandon is my client and Brandon is about to start his next set of squat, and I'm talking, oh, look at that, rest time is up.
Shut
You're
up,
like, you know
shut
what?
up, Jerry. Shut your mouth.
Shut up! Give me back my son! Sorry. Let's say Brandon's about to go in for his next set
What's
on
that from?
squat. This Mel Gibson movie. He was yelling into the... Ooh, I'm getting sweaty now.
That's funny.
Let's say Brandon is about to go back into his next set of squat, and I'm in the middle of, like, we're having a conversation, discussion, just keeping things moving, and I'm like, all right, time's up. We'll finish this after you finish your set. Let's get into the set really quick, and then we'll jump back to where we're at. I'll even interrupt client stories. Be like, wait, hold that thought. Let's get our next set before we finish that story. We'll jump into it again.
Yeah.
Because I've seen plenty of trainers who just continue to talk through sessions, and it just completely takes away from what that person's trying to do. Do you hear this ice cream truck?
No.
Oh my God, thank you. At least you guys don't hear it. But if you're talking so much that you're taking away from the time that they're giving you and you're giving them, but they're also paying for your time,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
They're
So
paying for my
sometimes
time. They
talking
better
too much
listen to
can
my
actually-
stories. No, I'm joking.
Exactly. You're paying me. I'm going to talk to you.
Oh, that's fun.
Just be smart about your conversations if you have them. Because I've seen a lot of trainers just, in my opinion, waste their clients' time.
Yeah, that's a good one. Honestly, I couldn't really think of a hot take. I was trying to think of one before, and I was trying to think of one hereafter. I think the biggest thing I can say is that, like, similar to what Jerry said, like, because it really would have been similar anyways. Like, if you find yourself talking, excessively, if you find yourself in that position, it would probably be better off for, like, I think, like Jerry said, if you're talking that much, you're probably not watching, right? Like, you're probably not able to actually see what's in front of you. And I think that if you want to be a great coach, you really have to get good at just, like, shutting up and listening, right? Because that's where you're going to learn the most about the people in front of you. And that's realistically, that's where you're going to learn the most about people in life, because people do love talking about themselves. And if you can learn that skill of just, like, stopping for a second and allowing people to speak, you're going to get so far, and people are going to love you, and they're going to feel comfortable around you, and they're going to trust you. And I really do believe that, like, the more that you can listen, right? Oxymoron, is that what it is? Oxymoron. What's, like, when
The more that you can listen.
No, I was gonna say, because as we're here talking for hours a week.
Oh yeah, we're listening to each other.
We're telling people to shut up and listen as we speak for hours. Yeah. But anyways, the that idea of, like, if you can sit back and listen, you're gonna gain so much information that you can then use to make a better experience for the client. Obviously, you have conversation, right? If someone talks to you, you're gonna talk back.
Shut up! I'm not
But-
supposed to talk to you.
Yeah. my trainers that I listen to on the podcast said I can't talk to you.
Dude, it's fun. I'm the type, if I'm looking for, like, if I'm trying to find where I'm going in the car and somebody's next to me and they're talking, I'm like, hold on, stop talking for a second. I need to, like, I'll turn down
That's
the
like
radio. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Let me do
I was
this.
gonna say it's like the turn down the radio. I can't see.
Yeah, exactly. That's me. I'm that person. So, like, I can't have it's true. You're not observing if you're talking.
Yeah.
To
So
a
I think
degree,
that would,
like, you can do both, but yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that would end up being very similar to my hot take is that like you gotta learn to just shut up and listen because I think it might not be a hot take. That might just be a take. I don't know. Like it's just
It's
like
a take.
a piece of coaching, right?
It's giving.
Yeah, giving. So
Yeah.
the last thing I want to talk about is the drill, right? Segment the drill. I want you guys to really kind of reflect on your next session and see how much you're actually like talking versus observing, right? And make mental notes, write actual notes, right? Like one of the things I used to do early on because I really wanted to kind of improve at a lot of this stuff was I wrote down, a lot of little notes that I saw where I was like, I could fix this, or how would I cue this? What's a better word for, external rotation of the hip? What's a better word for internal rotation of the shoulder? Because obviously people aren't going to like digest that stuff as easy. And you start to observe, you start to listen, you start to think of the ways that, because even this, right? Like we talked about this in the cueing. Like, what was it? The eye of the storm? Was that yours?
Wow.
For the RDL?
Oh, shoot the bullet, and then Eye of the Storm was another one. Yeah,
Yeah,
I forgot
what
about
it
that
was.
one.
Shoot the bullet.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know
because
what it was.
that's when my client was like, "Oh, right in the eye of the storm," and I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
Jesus, yeah."
So like something like that, right? Where they might just give you the cue that makes sense, and you just have to listen, right? And we're over here talking about dissociation of the hips and the lower back, and hip hinging and glute activation. They're just like eye of the storm, and you're like, yeah, eye of the storm. Like, let's go with that, right?
I did this. I got to a point where I would just go like this at the client, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
Yeah. Well, then that's what I'm saying is like, if you just listen, a lot of that stuff's going to get answered for you. So I want you to go home, even after your next session, whenever that is, I want you to go home and I want you to really kind of sit back and think like, how much am I actually listening and what am I taking away from the session today as a coach, right? Not just what am I giving, because obviously you're giving a workout, you're giving advice, whatever it might be, but what am I taking from it? Maybe it's something you learn about the client. Maybe it's something you learn about the movement. Maybe it's something you learn about the exercise selection, or you learned about, the gym itself. You don't know. So just listen and try to take something away from each session. Because I think there's another thing too. Observation really helps us with the monotony of training. Because I think training can become monotonous where it's like you're having the same conversations, you're watching the same movements, you're seeing the same people. And not to say that it's boring, because that's not the case, but it is just the same thing. And as a human, like you're going to struggle with it on some days. And I think when you're struggling, the biggest thing to do is like, okay, what can I take away from this session today? And that's something that's helped me a ton and helped me learn and then helped me come back and become better. So I would say that that's probably my thing for the week that I want you guys to take away from this episode. And when you do it, if you want feedback, if you want to just show me what you wrote, send it our way. We'll be more than happy to look at it. And yeah, anything to add to that?
I would say on top of that, my little drill for you guys is, this is something that I can't stop myself from doing. It just happens. But just work on like observation skills on first contact. So obviously when a client comes in, you can see a couple different things just by their posture or the way they're walking. You could probably guess that they're going to have certain issues coming your way. Mm-hmm. So when you see a random person on the street and they're walking, pay attention to the way they walk. Say like, oh, don't like stalk them and be like, oh, I'm not done watching yet. But why are you walking like that? I would say pay attention to like random people walking by or sitting, or if you see someone like bend over to pick something up, see what their back looks like. All these little things, practice observation in places that you usually wouldn't. And that actually can transition into becoming a better coach on observation for first contact.
Yeah, I think I definitely do that too much because I think people see me staring at them
their
sometimes.
gait is fucked up.
No, literally. Like
Yeah, I do it.
I was having a conversation with Danielle, and she was like, "Do you ever just look at people and their outfits?" And I was like, "No, I look at how they walk." And she
Yeah.
was like, "Really? Like every person?" I was like, "Yeah." And then this guy walked past, and I was like, "He probably has lower back pain." And she was
I had this same discussion recently. It's crazy that we both do that. I love it.
But I think it's just something you do, and like once you get better at it, you can start to see stuff. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, you get better at observation, you get better at the communication, and then you get exactly what you need, as communication with the client. But, yeah, I think that's it. Maybe that's the influence pick. Watch people walk.
Yeah.
Take a step back and just watch some people walk.
Just
this
people
week.
watch.
Yeah. Don't
You
listen
can
to any
watch the fentanyl
podcasts.
fold around the corner if you're in
Yeah.
Denver or LA. Maybe if you're anywhere in California, really.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the fentanyl fold. Pay attention to the guy fist fighting and shadow boxing an opponent in the park.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen all these things. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's it for this week. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. There is only 5 days left. Actually, I think by the time this comes out, voting will have been done for the trainer of the year. So if you have voted for me, I can't thank you enough. Hopefully we win this. If you didn't see the post from last Wednesday when I post this of my trainer of the year campaign video, ended up coming out really nice. I liked it. So it was awesome. I'm again, honored to be nominated for a second time. So let's see what happens. We'll find out in December if your boy gets that trophy. And if you haven't, download my free guide. We have the Why Goals Matter or the Fight Camp Mentality, whatever one you want to call it, on my website at www.bgperform.com/goals, and follow us on Instagram at Coach Jerry Hayes and at BGPerform_. I'm currently taking on clients in the Albany area. If you are interested, at ABC Fitness and online. And Jerry is also, I think, taking on clients in LA.
Yep, at Immortals Boxing in Pasadena.
So if you want to work with your boys, definitely reach out. We'll make it happen. We'll make it work. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.